So we've been talking about the different columns. We have our three styles of Greek columns, the Doric, the Ionic, and the Corinthian, and the differences between these different styles, such as how the columns are different. We have our capital here is very plain. It becomes fluted in the Ionic, and then it has cantus leaves in the Corinthian order, and many more things that we just talked about. So now what I want to bring your attention to is the triangular space, like this, that's made by the roof. And this is called the pediment. So you see the pediment here and the pediment here. And sometimes what would happen with the Greek temples with this pediment is they would place sculpture. So we're going to look at some of that sculpture now. So this is the sculpture that is in the pediment of the Temple of Aphaea, and the temple dates to circa 500 to 490 or the 470s BCE. And what they did here, it's really an amazing kind of strategy of how they're fitting these figures into the space. So we have first in the middle here, we have the goddess Athena. And Athena is slightly bigger than everyone else because she's a goddess. And just like we've looked at previously through the semester, when we looked at like Egyptian art or Near East art, the person who's in charge or the person with the most power is shown bigger. So she's bigger here. And then to fit it again into this triangular space, they came up with this ingenious idea, which is to have the warriors on either side of her take a lunge forward. And by doing that, their bodies get bent down a little bit into that position. Then what follows next over here and over here are the archers. So the archers are on their knees, getting ready to shoot their arrows. And then on the last part here and over here, we have our dying warriors. And that's really what I want to focus on is the dying warriors. So we have one dying warrior here on the west side. And this was the one that was slightly earlier. And then we have one on the opposite side, on the east side, that I'm going to show you. And this temple is really an interesting temple to study the art from it, because we see that it is really a transitional piece of architecture. So the way the figure is carved really changes from the west side, the older, to the newer, the east side. So here we have the west side of the dying warrior, and we date this to circa 500 to 490 or possibly the 470s. And now if we go to the other side of the temple, we have in the same position, but on the other side, we have the dying warrior again. And this one is just slightly later. It's circa 490 to 480, or perhaps the 470s also, and of course BCE. So the dates are really close to one another, but we know this one would have been carved slightly later because of the style. The style is so different between the two. So let's pull them next to each other so we can really see the difference here. And before I give you any explanation, I want to open it up to the class here and see if you can come up with anything that you notice that is really either similar or different between these two figures.
I'd like to mention something.
Great,
So,
Josh.
so the one on the left, I think he's trying to not show any weakness. He's trying to show maybe more honor. And like, unlike the one on the one on the right looks weaker. He's, not showing any emotion. He's just, going down there. He looks like he's just, accepting death, while the other one on the left is, seems to be kind of like proud of what he's done,
Okay,
what he's fighting for.
great. And is that why then you think that this one looks weaker?
Yeah.
because he's kind of just accepting the death, the fact that he's dying.
Muscles don't exactly show how strong you are. Like, it also shows how mentally strong you are, you know?
Mm. Hmm. Great. Emma, could you add to what Josh said or any other observation you might be able to make?
Yeah. On the right, the warrior looks like he is more focused on himself and like his wounds than on the warrior on the left, which is more focused with the person who's looking at it.
Mhm. And why is that? Why do you think that is?
Uh, the warrior on the right is faced kind of away from us and is like conserved to himself, while the warrior on the left is open and is looking towards us.
Okay, great. So because he's twisted and kind of looking downward, he's more like into himself in a way. And maybe
Yeah.
that's why, like Josh said, he doesn't look as strong. And then this guy here, this warrior, he it's almost like he's posing and he's open and he's facing us, right? Okay. What about the faces? What could you say about the faces? Is there any difference that you could say that you notice between the two faces?
So the one on the left, he's smiling. Like he's showing that he's proud, and he doesn't care what other people like. I mean, like he cares about what his comrades think, I guess. And then the one on the right, he looks to be like just accepting his death. He looks like kind of I don't know how to say it, like sad. Not
Mm-hmm.
sad. He's like, he looks a bit agonized, and he has his shield up, he's protecting himself,
Mm-hmm.
but you can
Okay,
see his
great.
face.
Yeah, and this one has a shield, and this one doesn't. Right? That's
Yeah.
another difference. So he has a shield and a helmet. Mm-hmm. Emma, what do you think about the faces?
Well, if I'm correct, the one on the left has an arcane smile.
Archaic. Very good.
Archaic
Archaic
smile.
smile.
And on the left, it's like this weird smile where it's like, oh, yeah, I got hurt, but it's okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or on the right, it's like, oh no, I'm hurt and I'm gonna die.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
The
great.
one
Yeah.
the one
Go
on the
ahead. I'm sorry.
left, I'd like to add one more thing. The one on the
Yeah.
left, I agree with Emma. The one on the left is showing pride. He
Mm-hmm.
is just proud, and the one on the right is just, he doesn't really care. He only cares about himself.
Okay. Okay. And we have during this time period this really weird, which you both picked up on, this really weird smile called the archaic smile. And it was just the style at the time. But it's strange. It doesn't look very natural because if you were impaled in the chest by something, you're not going to be smiling. Like, yay, I was impaled with a sword. And here we have the elbow missing here, but this originally would have been some kind of sword or something that is impaling him, killing him. Um, and so I can imagine if that were to happen to me, I wouldn't be smiling. Then we flip to the other side of the temple and we see the same situation here where he originally held a sword that was stabbing him, but yet we don't have this weird kind of archaic smile anymore. We don't really have an expression of like extreme pain, but we have a more naturalistic expression between the two. And then we also have facial hair on this guy where we don't have facial hair on this guy. And so to me at least, he looks slightly older.
Yeah.
He looks slightly younger because of that. And then we also have with the archaic style, this very stylized, weird braided hair. The muscles are way too exaggerated in this figure. Where this figure, they're still really exaggerated, but they're more realistic. And, it's not realistic in the true sense, because what they're doing is they're trying to make it look like the idealized figure, like in the Egyptian art that we looked at. So it's the idealized figure to the most perfect representation of the figure that is possible. So did this person, was there a warrior that actually looked like this? No, probably not. But it's what they think would be the idealized warrior.